We're just going to have a look at the integration of Oxygen with Gutenberg Blocks, and we're going to edit this page in both Gutenberg and in Oxygen and see what effect that has on the layout, the content and the styling. So just to show you, we're here on the plugins page and you'll see that we've loaded Oxygen Gutenberg integration, and now what we're going to do is we're going to convert the page into Gutenberg blocks. So to do that, we'll head over to Edit Page, and with the page loaded, what we're going to do then is convert that entire page to a Gutenberg block. Now once you've loaded Gutenberg blocks, you're going to see that you have an additional couple of options when you look at a standard page. And here of course we have the edit with Oxygen, but what we can also do now is make this page fully editable in Gutenberg, and that's the setting that we want to tick. I've ticked that, and then I'm going to update the page. When I update the page, that entire page is now going to become a Gutenberg block. So here we go, we're just waiting for that to update. Page is still updating, just give it a second. It refreshes, and now you'll see that I have the entire page loaded, and it looks pretty much the same as it does on the front end, bar one or two exceptions. So just so that we can orientate ourselves, we'll see here that on this page, in that section, we have some odd content. So we'll just head over to the front end, and here we have it. It's the slider content. So if I head back here, you'll see that we have a slider, and the slider is displaying oddly, but what I can still do is come into that slider and edit content. So let's just take it from the top and let's make some changes. So here we're going to say, let's call this our top product, and here let's make that updated content, and I'm going to let's make that also caps. So we'll do that updated content, and right, so I'm just changing some layout, some content. Can I change the image? So at the moment, if I have a look here on the right hand side at the options available to me, and this is taking the standard atomic template, you'll see I can set the background image, which will be our top products, or I can clear that. So the clear not working, but maybe we can change that background image. Let's see if we have something else. Let's make it that image. Yes, so setting that image does work. Now if I select clear, it goes back to the default. So what I'll do is I'm going to select clear there, and then I'm going to update, and let's just have a look and see if that actually does clear, or if it just reverts back to the default image that was uploaded. So it reverts back to the default image. So I'm going to change that background image. I'm going to head back to the Ferrari. Right, so we're going to use that image. Then we have the URL for buy now. So that links to the product tour. So if we want to change that URL, simply hit change URL. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change that to, for example, the 404 page, just for argument's sake. And I can't change the buy now wording here, but I can change it here, and I can just change that to error. Right, so we'll have a look and see if that link works. Then here, let's change that to A, B, C. Let's change this to some new content. So we're just having a look here to see what we can do. Right, then we're going to head further down. There's some references here to some to an icon. So let's just scroll down until we find an icon. So here we have the icon, and the icons that we have listed here are sun, eye, Right, there's the Font Awesome Apple icon. So you'll see when I hover over that on the right hand side that the icon is highlighted. Now when I browse, there we have the Apple icon. So let's have a look at something else. Right, so very easy now. I'm going to change that icon and the Google Play. So now we look here for the Google icon and we'll browse icons, and let's change that to that Google icon, and the Windows icon, let's change that. Is there a door? No. And let's just give it that one. Right, so now we were able to change those icons, and then what I'm going to do now is change this to, so we know that it was new content, and here we'll change that to new content as well. So there we've just made a quick change there, and now you'll see that we have these buttons. So let me change that to you must get, and you'll see here that once again I can change the URLs, and when I hover over the change URL, you'll see that that little icon, that little area is highlighted. So that's how those icons are working. Then if we look at the pricing, there we'll see the sun icon and the eye icon. So there, for example, we have the eye. So let's have a look at icons, and we'll change that to the bullseye, and then the sun. Let's change the sun icon to that one. And then what I'm also going to do now is just change this price to make it really expensive. Right, so we've made a few changes on the page, and then let's just have a look here inside our slider. Now you'll see here that I can change an image. The reason I can't change this one is because it's a background image and it's not set for changing. So here I'm going to just click on this image to change it. So we'll head over into our image library, and now you'll see that the images included in the template are not in my media library. So here I'm going to change that for this one. So not very exciting. And this image over here, we'll change that up, and let's give that the red T. So now we have those two images changed, and on the main page, let's head over and let's also change that icon or that image, and that image, let's go with the magnifying glass. Right, so I've made those changes, and now what I'm going to do is update, head over to the website, refresh, and there you'll see that the Ferrari has come into the background. We have our new updated content, so we've updated the content. You can see the new content there. Our slider, we changed the slider images, and you'll see that those have changed. Then here the icons have changed, the pricing has changed, and here are the icons. And over here we did redirect to the error 404 page. Unfortunately though, in that listing of items I linked it through to the template page and not the actual error page. So let's go, I'm just going to edit that again, and then what I'm going to do here is just change that URL. So here the error 404 page, I'm going to change that, so not a template page, but let's give it a different page. So let's link that through to perhaps the brands page. So let's add that link. So let's make that now. Right, but you can see that that works, and the link did change and it was updated. And now if I head back to the website and I refresh, you'll actually see that that will now reflect the brands page, and when I click on that I can go through to the brands page. Right, so quite nicely done. Now what we want to do is, now let's say we want to change some of these headings. We want to change the formatting, change some button colors, maybe change that background image. So to do that, we're going to have to edit that in Oxygen. So we simply scroll down and leave all the settings as is, and now we're going to edit with Oxygen. So we're just going to let that load up. Now what's going to happen inside Oxygen that you'll see is that we can edit the template settings, but the content's not going to change. With Oxygen loaded, let's have a look at changing some things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get over to products, and I'm going to give it a background, and just to make it stand out, we're going to make it a black background. And then what I'm going to do is just add some size and spacing. So we're just going to add 15 pixels all around, and then I'm going to change the borders and make them rounded. And just for some special effect, we'll add a box shadow, and we'll give that a slight vertical and a slight blur. So there we have our heading, the slight shadow. This text here, of course, we want to change the color because it's currently on a red background. So why don't we go for black? So we're going to change our text color, and let's select that one, and let's even change the font weight now so we can see it a bit easier. Right, so there we have our change there. Here what we're going to do is we're going to change this background image. So I'll just head over to my structure panel, and right, let's just have a look here at the background. So there we have our background image. I'm going to browse, and I'm going to change that image now for that image. Right, so there we have our new image. And what I'm also going to do is change the Buy Now button. I don't think that is a very good color, so I'm going to change that hover color to the dark blue, and I'm going to leave the rest as is, or perhaps we should just change that color as well. So on the hover, I'm going to change that text color to white. So now when you hover, we have the white. Right, and then just change that back to the original state. So there we've made that change. Over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the button completely, and what we're going to do is we're going to give that a background color, and let's make it red, and let's make the text color white, and let's head over to the borders, and let's make the borders a dark color, solid. Right, and then let's just change the hover background color. So I'm going to go to advanced background, going to change the state to hover, and the background color there, we're going to make it really dark, and then I'm going to head back to the normal state. So when I hover, that's really dark. Then what I'm going to do over here now is let's change this pricing formatting. So what we'll do is we'll also just give that a background, make that red, but let's make it slightly transparent. And then size and spacing, let's make it 20, and then let's also give it a border of 5. And then this background color here, I'm actually going to change that to a very dark color, and then I'm going to set the text color to white. Let's set that text color to white, and let's see if we set the text color there. Typography, no, that's changed on the item. Right, so there we've changed this completely, and now what we'll do here is on the pricing, let's go to the typography, and let's just make that pricing white. So there we have the pricing is completely changed, and over here I think that's enough changes just to see what happens. So now when we head over to the website and we refresh, you'll see that a lot of those changes now have taken place and the styling has changed. So there we have that styling, the background image has changed. We did change that to the darker. Here we have our new button. Here we have the dark background. So you can see that the styling has been applied. So that's great. But now what happens when we actually go in here and we change some of the text? So now I'm going to change that to these are our products and new, let's go template grade gadgets available. So I'll just make those two changes and save. And now we're going to head over to the website and we're going to refresh. And what you'll notice is that none of those text changes have taken effect. I'm going to refresh that again. Right, so you'll see that the information that we generate inside WordPress then takes precedent over the content, but the styling in Oxygen is then obviously applied to the various elements. Just another thing that we can have a look at then is what happens now if I was to go back to the admin page. So I'm going to head back to the editing page inside WordPress, and I was to now remove the editing. So now make this full page editable in Gutenberg. I no longer want the client to have access, and I'm going to update. So now we want to see which content is going to take precedence inside Oxygen. Right, so we've removed that editing option. Now when I just wait for that to refresh, right, so now when I refresh the page here, you'll now see that because we've taken the edits away from WordPress, these are the text changes that we made within Oxygen. Now the changes that we made in Oxygen are reflecting on the page. And you'll also see now that because we made changes to the content here, those images, the changes were made within Oxygen, we're back to the original images. So this would be one way of reverting back to the original design or the original content that was on the page. You'll see our pricing has changed and that the icons have also gone back to the original icons. So what happens now if I decide I'm going to give editing options back to the editor, and let's update. Right, so that's updated. Now we're just waiting for the page to refresh. So just give it a moment. And now we'll have a look and see what content is associated. And here now you'll see that we're back to the content that we generated within WordPress. So these are our product. No, this is the text that we generated inside Oxygen. So now, so remember that if you, and you'll see that the images are back. So the way that it works is that if you hand over editing to a client and they make edits, and then you then edit that page again in Oxygen. If you edit in Oxygen and you change the styling, it's fine. But if you change the content, you're going to find that that content will be reflected if you take the editing away from WordPress and revert back to Oxygen. So reverting back to Oxygen after having it in WordPress is a way of resetting the content. So the best practice then would be is that if you do hand over the site to a client to edit within WordPress, you can never go back to Oxygen to edit content, but you can go back to Oxygen to edit the styling of that page. So if we wanted to do a complete style overhaul, we could quite easily do that in Oxygen without affecting the content on the page. Remember that in this case, some of the background images are not editable within WordPress. So just be careful in how you set that up so that you don't confuse the WordPress elements to the elements that are only editable within Oxygen. So it does work really well, and it looks really good in the back end, bar one or two formatting issues. For example, here with the slider, where here you get both sliders together. Can't explain why. And then on the front page, those would be 3 separate sliders. But if you edit, the edits do pull through correctly. So that's just a very brief overview into how the relationship works between Oxygen and WordPress when it comes to the Gutenberg blocks. Thank you for watching.